not excited to do it.
Welcome, friends. This is Felicia Slattery, and I am here with somebody I have known a very long time. His name is Lee Hildebrand, and Lee and I went to high school together. Classmates, Tigers. Oh my gosh. Well, we grew up in the Chicagoland area. Our school was Wheaton Central High School. Lee is now in Wisconsin. I am, of course, in Knoxville, Tennessee. And but we keep in touch with each other a little bit via Facebook. And I saw Lee posting about a speaking engagement you did recently. And I was like, wait, what? What happened? And so, because I was on the speech team in high school, but you were not, were you, Lee?
No, I was not.
But you did track. We did track together, which is kind of how we were friends.
Right.
And you're still running.
I am still running.
That's so cool.
I love doing 5Ks and 10Ks, and
that's incredible. That's incredible. Now, I stopped running our senior year in high school when I realized nobody was chasing me. Literally, I was always last, so I was like, you know what? Maybe this running thing isn't. So, all right. So tell me. So I saw you posting about the speaking thing, and then we connected on private message. And you do speaking and you have a whole business. So tell me about your work and the kind of work that you do.
Absolutely, Felicia. So I am a licensed psychologist as well as a life coach and business coach, and then also consultant. And how a lot of that came about is after I finished undergrad degree in philosophy and journalism, I realized I read the book A Road Less Traveled by Scott Peck.
Oh.
Excellent book if you haven't read it. Classic, and it just motivated me to want to impact lives on a personal and global level. So I started doing some schooling in psychology, obtained a master's, and really had a passion to want to work with people. Now, interestingly, why I'm a business consultant too is that in the midst of the master's, I did a project on a sense of community in urban neighborhoods and partnered with some people to start in real estate investment in community outreach in the northwest side of Milwaukee.
Wow.
And so we started a company and we started doing all kinds of community work, including homes and building new homes, really trying to work in helping the area grow. So I learned over about 10 business from the ground up. We started with a house or two and ended up having many employees working with the mayor's office. It just was an incredible journey. Lots of stories.
Wow, I guess so.
In 2008, I went back to grad school to get my PhD in psychology. And so the unique thing that I bring as a psychologist is I have all of this business background and community organization and organizational background.
Mm-hmm.
So in the midst of that, I started doing speaking. I wrote this marriage seminar called The Journey of Marriage. Mm-hmm. And started doing this marriage seminar in groups. And the unique thing about it is it has a teaching component and then an interactive component. Couples get to interact in real time with my wife and I facilitating, and then they get to experience other couples interacting, which is different because many seminars, people will go to the seminar today, they'll kind of elbow their spouse when there's an important point. It's a long day. They go home, go to sleep, and we got to go to work the next day.
Yeah.
So they don't get a chance to practice and implement.
Mm-hmm.
So long story short, after I finished my PhD, I went into private practice, and I currently have a group called Lakeshore Psychology Services, and I have another doctor that's working with me who is a cardiologist as well as a marriage and family counselor, and then I have a psychiatrist that's working with me as well. So we're a very small, custom-tailored quality group. So in terms of the speaking piece, I over time have just gotten into the speaking, really enjoyed it, and continue to build upon that in a number of different arenas. So that's where I'm at today. And then I life coach with people all over the country, and then see clients as a psychologist in my office during the day as well.
That is so cool.
Like you, I'm not a linear person. I like variety in my life.
I know. You got to do a lot of different things. Keep it interesting. So, gosh, I have 1,000 questions. All right, on a personal level, how long have you been married?
I have been married for 26 years.
26 years.
Yeah.
I don't think I know your wife. She didn't go to our high school, did she?
She did not. Okay. She was at New Trier.
Okay. Oh, okay. So not too far though. Awesome.
Right.
And so Dr. Lee Hildebrand, I love that. My friend's a doctor. So I stopped short of my PhD. I only got 2 masters. Someday I may go get a PhD just so that I can say I finished it, like I got it, did it, and was done. But would you say that having the PhD, I mean, based on how you've described your career, obviously it's helped your career. Has it helped your speaking, or number one, do you think it's helped your speaking? And then I have a second follow-up question I'll ask.
I think it's absolutely helped my speaking. Of course, the knowledge from that experience is incredibly helpful. But as you know, Felicia, at times, credentials can just be very helpful in terms of a sense of you're having something to say. As we both know, not everybody with certain credentials really has important or effective ways to say things.
Right.
But it certainly can help in terms of that entryway, that doorway in.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. And so then, so it helps open doors. All right. So then I want to know, so you were talking about a speaking gig. Do you get paid to show up and speak?
I do.
Okay.
I get paid a majority of the times I speak. There are times where I will do a talk just because I have a passion about it. In certain situations, if there's a church situation where they really can't pay and I feel like it's a really important venue, that I still want to do that. But I'm at a point where a majority of my speaking engagements are.
Okay. And so thinking about like the most recent speaking engagement that you had, it may have been the one that I just saw you talking about. What would you say is the price range that you typically are paid? And then I want to talk about how you specifically got that one gig.
Right. So I typically look to get about $200 an hour for my speaking situations, which is, for speakers, is not obviously extremely high, and it's not, pennies either. And the way I've kind of gauged that is when I'm working with clients or life coaching or whatnot, it's about $250 an hour. So I kind of have it in that range, and then I just identify it based on the situation that I'm in. Sometimes I'm in with companies or universities, things of that nature, where the funds are available, and that's not a problem. Other times, as I said, if it's kind of more community oriented, and I want to do some of it a little bit just as philanthropy, then I'll adjust that cost based on the value to me as a person.
Okay. And so with those fees that you get paid, it sounds like you're speaking to different kinds of organizations, corporate and church and community and whatever.
Retreats,
okay.
Local schools.
And are they typical multiple hours, or is it just like an hour usually?
It depends. Like, for instance, I'll do a keynote. I did a keynote in recent years at a occupational therapy conference on leadership, conflict management, and a host of other things. So it could be an example like that, where that was a full day seminar. I also, with my marriage seminars, they'll go, like marriage retreats will go a whole weekend.
Okay.
So I'll do a number of sessions throughout the weekend. I'm doing a marriage encounter upcoming. That's a whole day.
I love marriage encounter.
I do too.
They're fun.
We got to keep our marriages strong.
Absolutely. So you get paid to do the marriage encounters?
I do. So, for example, I'm doing one at a mega church here in Milwaukee in November, and that is a whole day. And so I get paid, by the hour for that. We've negotiated that. We're great. And so we just set costs with the attendees, et cetera, because I want to make sure that it's a win-win for the church and those that are attending.
Absolutely. All right. So thinking about the most recent one where you were paid, what was the gig and how did you get it?
So I recently did a mindfulness and meditation, several seminars at Concordia University in Wisconsin.
Okay.
Beautiful campus right on Lake Michigan, as you saw from the pictures.
Yeah.
And my office is very much nearby there. So over the years, I've collaborated with them a number of times. So really a word of mouth, when I think about it, word of mouth has probably been my most powerful tool in that regard, in terms of getting speaking engagements. So I've done some work in consultation in some departments there, some conflict management work. I've gone and done talks for different occasions they've had. I'm currently working on a potential podcast related to suicide with youth
Oh, wow.
associated with the university. So I've had a variety of things, and so I often get referrals to do additional things as they come up. Taught classes, guest speak, or not full classes, but done guest speaker at classes and various
Sure.
other.
And is that mainly coming from like one person or one department, or is it that you've kind of networked throughout that university?
I've networked quite a bit. I will say the counseling department there, I've really become well connected with them. We've collaborated in some situations, and I think it was a matter of they've recommended me in one situation, and then they've gotten really positive reviews, and then they just continued to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say they've been the main source, because people come to them, hey, we really need someone to speak that has these credentials, and they'll often, it seems like they'll often point my direction.
Yeah. So how did you start your relationship with them? Is that where you went for your PhD?
No,
Okay.
no, I went to Marquette University in Milwaukee. I started my relationship because, well, just to give a sense of the foundation of it, I am an avid networker, Felicia, and I know you can identify with this.
Yeah,
You are
yeah.
network.
We do that, yeah.
You do that. So any opportunity I have, I'm continually reaching out to people, and I really think the sweet spot of that is thinking about it intentionally all the time in every single interaction, and simultaneously genuinely loving it. People can smell if it's schmaltzy networking versus genuine connection, excitement about who we are and what we're doing, and real enthusiasm about this other person that we're engaging with and wondering what they're up to. And I found that that has been incredibly effective, both in terms of my practice, reputation in the Metro Milwaukee area, both from a speaking standpoint, coaching, in these areas, is just to continue to look at every situation as an opportunity to meet interesting people, and you just never know where those inroads are going to come. Hence our conversation today.
Yeah, exactly. So, so it sounds like you are well connected in the Milwaukee area. Do you do any speaking outside of Milwaukee?
I have not done any speaking outside of the state of Wisconsin that I can think of. I've done some radio shows and things that were a little more broad reaching.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of my focus in that is I really haven't tried to, because I've had 3 kids that are getting through high school. I've got my last one, he's a sophomore in high school. The other 2 are basically launched. So I'll see how things look in the next 3 years, if I want to expand the speaking out beyond that, or if I, see where things are at that point.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a really important point to make. One of the things that I teach people is called local celebrity. And you are a prime example of the fact that you can make a very good living as a speaker, as an expert, doing work that you love to do, coaching, consulting, all that kind of thing, without going anywhere. Like, you are speaking plenty, you are consulting plenty. You've got your, you've got your practice, your consulting practice, where you've got, I imagine, plenty of what do you call them? Clients, patients?
Fine.
Yeah.
Fine.
You got plenty of people you're helping, and it's all because of the local reach that you've done. Have you done any local media by chance, out of curiosity?
I have not. I really have not done direct advertising. Of course, I have a website. I write a blog on all kinds, lakeshorepsychology.com, on various topics related to psychology, marriage, parenting, just life in general, coping.
How often are you blogging?
It's usually about once a month. I'm a little overdue for my last one. That's on my radar over the next few days.
And when did you start? How long have you been blogging?
I've been blogging about a year.
Oh, so not very long at all.
Not a really long time.
Okay, good. And have you found that with some of the speaking, or when the clients come find you, do they say, oh yeah, I saw your blog post about whatever, or does that never really come up?
I think it's more a case of when I'm speaking, I may make a point and reference a blog and say, hey, go check this out.
Yeah.
So I'm not, in terms of the blog really being a big draw. I get comments from time to time, but I don't really have a good measuring sense, which is probably not good, on how much draw the blog is having.
Yeah.
But I know it's great to have it out there, and I enjoy the creative process of pulling that together. And sometimes it will dovetail with talks that I do.
Speaking of talks that you do, so you mentioned the marriage seminar that you do. How many different talks do you have, and or are you customizing them every time you present?
More often than not, I'm a tailor. And I tell people this: I will custom tailor a talk to what the audience need is. Now, from an efficiency standpoint, that's probably not the best. But the way I view it, I enjoy the creative process in looking at exactly what somebody needs in a certain venue and then pulling that together. I think sometimes it can be a lot more effective for audiences and groups that want to bring me in versus, hey, I have my talk A, B, C, and D. The mindfulness talk that I just did recently, they had asked me to come back again because I did that a year ago. So that's one example of where I had the talk completely teed up. Didn't make, obviously make changes, to keep things
small tweaks here and there. Yeah.
Tweaks, exactly. But more often than not, obviously, a marriage seminar it's a standalone that's set up, but there's variations that I could do. For instance, we can go in and talk to 200 to 300 people. And have it be a little bit more seminar style, and then the interactions themselves in the audience, or real more intimate encounter groups of, say, 20 to 25 people, 12 to 14 couples. So that's a little bit more standard, but I tailor that to my audience. But other talks, someone will approach me and say, hey, we're really looking for a talk related to addictions or addictions and faith. Or I've had requests to do a talk. One of my areas of expertise is addictions in my practice. That includes sexual addiction, pornography. So I'll go in and give talks on the challenges of pornography for teens, both on the science, from various perspectives. So I'm more of a tailor than I have my set of talks set up.
Good. Gosh, I'm so fascinated. I had like 3 questions pop into my head. I should have had like my notebook in front of me, but I didn't. I'm just so thrilled for you, Lee, that that you found such great success, and gosh, you're out there doing what so many of my clients want to do. A lot of people who will be seeing this this video, they are in my I'm going to be sharing it with my Speaker Cash Collective members, and a lot of them are still doing different work, that like kind of a full-time job, hoping to someday get into speaking, or some of them are doing some kind of expert, so to speak, work, but they haven't made that jump to doing more speaking. And I find it interesting because generally when I work with my people, I tell them, just give a flat fee rather than an hourly fee. So you're a shining example of there's another alternative out there. You can do that. And let me, out of curiosity, are you charging also for the hour or hours that you spend in prepping for the speech?
It depends on the scenario and the depth that's there. There's some, as I was getting started earlier, there's some situations where I just invested that time. And I kind of, frankly, I see it as a bit of a continuing education opportunity in terms of enhancing my knowledge on certain topics, et cetera. So I think that would clearly, as you're talking with your people, right, that's the ideal, to get paid for any of our time.
Yeah.
But given that this is something that I continue to salt and pepper through my career activities, I wouldn't say that I seek to get paid at this point for every single moment. I just try to use my judgment. And you probably tell your speakers this, that as you're continuing to build and get started, for instance, when I first got started, a lot of times it would be pro bono. Practice, having opportunity to get out there and make those connections and have people hear you and what you have to offer. So there's been a building process with that. It wasn't all paid at the beginning by any means. It was mainly volunteer at the start.
Well, I think the distinction that I make is rather than getting paid for our time, making it not about me as the speaker, but about what is the audience getting in value, and then charging for the value that they are receiving. So just as an example for you, you're doing a marriage, you're doing a marriage seminars, for example. How much money would somebody spend going to counseling and therapy, like marriage counseling and therapy? They might spend $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, right?
I'm much cheaper than a divorce attorney.
Exactly. So like they might spend that, for that, but if they can get the same or similar result by attending a marriage seminar, so that's how I teach people to value it. Or how much would a company spend on getting an employee rehabilitated from an addiction problem, let's just say. And I mean, how much does it cost a company to find and replace an employee? How much money do they lose in that employee's productivity? So you add up all of those numbers, that's easily $5,000 or $10,000. You say, all right, you pay me $5,000 or $10,000. You'll save that, because what I'm about to teach these people will make their productivity better and can help them break free from their addictions without you having to invest all of that money in another way over a longer period of time. And now all of a sudden, it's not about, well, it took me 2 hours, so it's 200 times 2 is $400. It's $5,000 because I just saved you company $10,000. I'm a bargain at $5,000. So that's the difference, the distinction. So rather than this is the amount of time that you put into it, it's what's the value that the person or the organization or whatever on the other end. And obviously a company's got $5,000 all day long versus an individual couple who is like, oh, wow, we don't have $5,000. But because they're not thinking the way that most people are thinking, like, or they are thinking the way most people are thinking, like, well, I would spend $250 an hour, $5,000. I'm not spending that many hours. But they're not realizing, like, no, you don't have to go to counseling or therapy for years and years. If you come to this thing, you do the interactive stuff, you learn what we're teaching you to learn, and then you practice it in your everyday life, which is what we coach you to do in counseling consulting. But, again, most people aren't thinking that way. They're like, oh, well, I'm only going to be there 3 hours, so I don't $5,000. But a company will happily invest that all day long when you point out to them the value. So that's the distinction that I make with my folks, is think about the value that you're bringing.
Right. And it's a graduated process, as you know, as you're building, is, having a temperature about what kind of money can I command at this point in terms of what kind of value is seen in terms of where you're at in that process.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think having the credentials certainly allows you to be able to charge more, because, people go, oh, well, this guy must know something. He's got a PhD.
Right. And books don't hurt.
Have you written any books?
I have not. I've done many research articles, things of that nature, but I have not published a book, and my wife reminds me about that every day.
Well, then you and I need to talk about getting you a book done. I'm just saying, because I'm on 6, working on 7. So
loving that.
I'm trying to remember. There they are. That's my collection of what I got.
Right behind your head?
That's me.
All right.
I was in a magazine.
Awesome.
I was in actually several magazines. But anyway, so, well, Lee Hildebrand, thank you so much for being here. How can people get a hold of you? They can read your website. Share your website again. What's it called?
It's LakeshorePsychologyServices.com.
LakeshorePsychologyServices.com, and that's where your blog is.
I see clients locally. My blog is there, as well as I do life coaching for people all over the country on various matters, business issues, marriage, personal issues, ways that they want to really look to grow.
Fantastic. Oh, I do have one more question. I remember. So you talked a lot about working with churches. You've talked about your faith. When you speak in non-faith places, are you sharing your faith there, or are you not?
It just depends on the setting in terms of what's there, what's the expectation. Even in different faith settings, there's as you know, there's different nuances. Right. Parameters. So I just try to be sensitive to that, and then simultaneously, as they say, let the Spirit lead.
That's wonderful. I love it. I think that's a great note to end on. Lee Hildebrand, thank you so much for being here. Friends, go check him out. And he's great inspiration for work that you can be doing yourself as well. Thanks, Lee.
Thanks, Felicia. Have a great day.
You too.